Hello, I'm back again today to talk about a theme that is very, very important for the upcoming summer fishing season as it applies to the Great Lakes, being that the main focus of my time is spent on the Great Lakes and the lower Great Lakes of Erie and Ontario. I want to talk about Dipsy divers, downriggers, and planer boards. Which should you use? And the pros and cons of each. Really, to answer the question of which should you use, it can depend on a variety of factors. Really, the biggest one would be species. Because when you're in the summertime, and we're only going to talk about summertime tactics here, because that's when most people use Dipsy divers, planer boards, and downriggers. In the summertime, your walleye are going to be in one place, your lake trout are going to be in another place, and your salmon in Lake Ontario are going to be in still another type of place. And different tactics will be better for reaching each fish species. So I'm going to start first of all by doing a major overhaul of the advantages, the pros and cons of Dipsy divers, the pros and cons of downriggers, and the pros and cons of boards, planer boards. Then I'm going to talk about a little bit of how it works with each species, whether it's better or not so good to use one of those tactics or the other with a salmon approach, a lake trout approach, or a walleye approach. So first of all, we're going to start out by talking about what Dipsy divers do. Dipsy divers are sort of not a downrigger and they're not an outrigger. They take your line out from the boat like a planer board, but not quite as far as a planer board. And they also take your bait down from the boat, deep like a downrigger. So a Dipsy diver takes you out if you wanted to, and also down. You get the benefits of the downrigging concept, and you get the benefits of taking it out from the boat, so you can put, for example, your first set of rods out to the side at a 3 setting, your second set of rods out to the side at a 1 setting, and your back 2 rods out to the side at a 0 setting to draw straight back. And you would have them staggered in 3 columns that would never intertwine. So you get an outrigging benefit, but you would use your chart that comes with the Dipsy diver to know how much feet of line to put out at the desired speed of 2.5 miles an hour, which sometimes you'll go faster, sometimes you'll go shallow or slower based on water temperature, and you would get approximately the depth that you need to get based on that chart with a certain feet of line. So you get outrigging, you get downrigging, all in one with the Dipsy diver. The con, though, is it doesn't go out as far away from the boat as the planer boards will take your line. And the depth chart only goes so far. Like if you use a number 1 Dipsy, which is very popular in Lake Erie, the depth chart only goes down to about 60 feet, maybe 75 feet. Memory doesn't really serve me. And that might be on the 0 setting. On the settings to the side, like 1, 2, and 3, I don't think it even goes that far down. So after that, you would have to do like a mathematical analysis of the intervals and see how many feet of line goes out and how much feet of depth you get at a 3 setting, at a 2 setting, at a 1 setting. And at the 5-foot intervals for depths, you can sort of spot shot how much more line you need to add on to get it out to the desired depth you would want. As you can see, that's a guess and check game. That's a disadvantage to the Dipsy diver. On the outrigging, it's limited. And on the downrigging ability, the ability to take it down, it's limited. Now we're going to talk about downriggers. Downriggers are great because you can get almost the exact depth you want, anywhere within 150 feet for sure, especially if you have a 400-foot spool like I do. On a Canon Digitrol 5, I believe is my type. I mean, I can go down almost probably to 200 feet if I really wanted to. But the bottom line is you can get the depth you want. You'll have to worry about blowback. That is a con. So as you go faster, the cannonball is going to push back in the resistance of the water. You might have to give it more rope, more cord to get down to the depth you want. But it's very little guess and check to get the amount of cord that you would need to take it down to a desired depth and keep it there to target fish that you're charting at that depth, or to put your lure in a cloud of bait at that depth. You'll be able to do it easily. It also has the benefit of having the ability to be hooked up with a thermometer. Say you're looking for trout, salmon, or lake trout, and they like a certain temperature. We all know the Lakers like that 42 to 44 degrees, right? We all know salmon like it at a certain temperature. You can look to find at what depth you're finding that temperature. Also good. The problem with downriggers, the con, the downside would be there's a limited amount of rods you can put, maybe one or two in each downrigger, and they really don't outrig or stretch out beyond the boom. So you might get 5 feet from the side of the boat. That's about it. The boards, the planer boards, we're going to talk about them. Planer boards, the upside is you can spread out your rods staggered at different distances from the boat as much as you want. Your front rods can be further out, your secondary rods can be closer, or your back rods can be further out, secondary rods closer, your front rods closer yet. Excuse me, I'm thinking backwards now. And you can keep those distances wherever you want them. But the problem is, the con is, you got to guess and check how deep you're running. So once you put your bait down, you're going to put it down with a weight, probably a snap weight or an inline weight. And whether it's 2 ounces, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, 5 ounces, 6 ounces, you're going to have to judge the weight of the weight and the speed you're traveling at to know how deep you're going. And to put that, and especially if the fish are suspended, if you're not looking to hit bottom, to put that at a particular depth takes a lot of guess and check, a lot of practice to keep it in the zone where you're charting fish or the zone where you're charting bait the fish may be feeding upon. The good captains that have done it for like 30, 40 years, yeah, like I just said, they had 30, 40 years practice to get that right. But if you're just starting, that takes a lot of guess, a lot of check, a lot of experience. And also current and wave height can affect it. So then once you figure it out, you got to worry about current and wave height affecting how your ability to stay in that zone you want. Waves can also interfere with the tension release clips. The clips can come off if you get in high waves real easily. Then you got to set it, further back on the rubber pad. When you set it further back on the rubber pad, the walleye can't set it off as easily because walleye are light hitters, light biters. And you might have stragglers that are riding your rod, and then you got to look at your rod tip bouncing to see the bounce of the tip to see if you have a fish or if you have a straggler. Like I said, a lot of downside to planer boards, but they are a tried and true 1990s, 1980s type of style of fishing that definitely does work. So with the benefits and disadvantages of each clearly laid out, we're now going to talk about briefly 3 species of fish that you can fish for using these techniques. The first would be salmon. For salmon, the advantage of Dipsy divers is you can get your front rods outrigged and down at the depth you want, because a Dipsy diver takes you out and down. And those would be for your shallower depths, because sometimes salmon go anywhere from like 30 to 80 feet down. They suspend. They're suspenders. They don't sit on bottom usually. So for those shallow ones, if they're suspended up high between 30 and 50 feet down, I'd recommend using a Dipsy diver with the appropriate color combination you would like. And then for the depths, you could use the downriggers. So say you got them 100 feet down, 80 to 100 feet down, you're probably going with your downrigger there, because you just aren't letting a lot of line out for the Dipsy diver to sink that far, and you aren't playing a guessing game, guess and check to see how far down it is with like a number 1 Dipsy diver. A downrigger would be more appropriate, always accounting for the blowback. Boards, I just wouldn't recommend for salmon because, again, it's very hard to regulate depths. And salmon, the name of the game is you got to have the right depth to hit them while they're suspending. With lake trout, you could use Dipsy divers. I've done it. I've done it in well over 150 feet of water on a 0 setting, straight out the back. And I have done the math, extrapolating from the chart every 5 feet, multiplying it by how many feet down I want to get and how many feet of line I'd have to lay out. It was a hell of a lot of mathematics. It did work. And the other thing is it was so far back beyond the boat that even on a 9-foot rod, it was hard to keep tension on the fish when they would hook up. Sometimes they'd lose. They'd get slack with the waves and get off. Sometimes they wouldn't. And the other thing was it was really, really hard to turn. So Dipsy divers are less than desirable. Downriggers would be optimal for lake trout. Downriggers, as long as you account for blowback on the downrigger chart, you can put it right on that bottom, baby, and you can just, or right 5 feet above the bottom, however you want to approach it, however you're charting them, it'll work great. And boards, I mean, really, they go so deep that on boards, to make sure you're hitting bottom on all of them, it would be very hard for lake trout. I would not recommend it for lake trout planer boards. Walleye, you could use all 3 tactics on walleye. Let's talk about walleye. For walleye, the Dipsy divers, for the same reason that salmon in shallower water would work out, you can, just take them out to the side and regulate your depths and stagger them, and also bring your baits down at the same time, which is really great. The depth's about 75 feet. It is my go-to tactic for walleye, absolutely, because really walleye in the summertime usually aren't that deep. It's warm water fish. If you do get into a situation where you start to get into late fall, downriggers can be really effective, especially as you go into the eastern basin of Lake Erie and the walleye start going in 90, 100 feet of water. You can actually hit the those depths, and you would have a short line. You'd have a better turning radius with the downrigger when you're at those deeper depths, instead of having, again, a long line with the Dipsy diver where you have to take long, gradual turns so you don't tangle your lines together. You have two right out the back, walleye fishing late season, real deep, can regulate it, calculating for the blowback on the blowback chart. It comes with your downrigger. And for the weight of your cannonball, you can just, it is a curve chart, X, Y axis, boom. The point that connects is where you're at the speed and the weight, boom, there it is. You would be right there. Boards will work for walleye. There's a few downsides. The turn radius is really bad because you have 150 feet out on each side. It's like big arms sticking out that you're going to try to not tangle up. And with that said, let's say we're in the summertime. There's a crowd of boats, say at Conneaut, Ohio for walleye. They're not going to like seeing you turn around like that and take up a big portion of the lake and tangle all their lines. You're going to get into a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, a lot of radio screaming at one another. I mean, there have been some classics I've heard on the radio. And I've even been involved in, saying my piece to some of those guys, like, hey, what the hell are you doing out here? You obviously have not respected the space of everyone else out here by doing that. So I think you're going to anger other boaters doing that when you go for walleye. So those are the three tactics that you would use in Great Lakes fishing, either Dipsy divers, downriggers, or planer boards, with some recommendations of how you can productively use them for the three species of fish that I've mentioned: lake trout, salmon, and walleye. I hope this was useful. I hope you consider it when you next go out on Lake Erie, especially if you're just starting out and you haven't developed your, acumen and skill as a Great Lakes fisherman. And for you newbies out there, I hope it helps you out, gives you something to think about. This is John Stevens with another post. I'm thinking this is going to come up around April 30th, so hopefully your fishing season is starting off and the coronavirus shutdown has stopped. Take care, and take care of yourselves. Bye.